All right, Dan, here we are with our recap, our quick hits recap episode for this week, week 3 of the games in the CCL, and it was all CCL this week, Dan. I'm not sure the divisions as far as which division was against the other divisions, but every single one of the games, and we covered, let's see, how many was it? It was 12 of them on
12
our
total,
Friday
yeah.
Night Blitz segment.
Yep.
And all games within the CCL. So some really exciting games this week, Dan. Maybe some surprises as well.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Did we learn anything, you think?
We might be impossible to teach.
One
I
thing
think so.
I learned, and maybe I knew this already, but maybe it was reinforced for me after the games this weekend, is there are some really good quarterbacks in the Chicago Catholic League, aren't there?
Yeah, there's a host of them, and if a school doesn't have one currently, it feels like they have one up and coming, right? Or they've all got a guy, whether that guy is a big time guy, I should say, whether he's the current one or you're looking at him and thinking he's a year away, he's 2 years away from being really good.
Yeah. I mean, when you look at the game that Jack Elliott had, right? Outstanding. Logan Malachek on the other side, really good game.
Yeah.
Armbruster had a really good game as well. Who else? Brady Palmer, right, from St. Francis.
He was outstanding again.
Outstanding game.
Cooper Komet,
another.
Yeah.
Ryan Kabaki,
yeah,
from Bennett, another good game. So, when you start to go through the schools and Juju Rodriguez from DePaul Prep, it's really good quarterback play in the Chicago Catholic League. Before I started looking into this a little bit closer, Dan, you never really, I guess you didn't associate really good quarterbacks with the Chicago Catholic League for some reason. Maybe you thought about defenses, or maybe you thought about some other position that always stepped up, but I'm really impressed with the quarterback play so far this year.
Yeah, Joe, and I think that extends, to the IHSA. The quarterback play in the state of Illinois is at a really high level, and a lot of kids going to a lot of different camps and that sort of thing, quarterback coaches. So, it doesn't surprise me too much, but it has really kind of come to the forefront early in this season, the number of good quarterbacks out there.
Yeah, for sure. And it's going to be exciting to watch the quarterbacks as well as the teams going forward. But we're here to recap our games, Dan, from this past week. And as we said, it was a really good week of football within the Chicago Catholic League. The first game we wanted to take a look at, Dan, was the Brother Rice St. Rita game. Rice.
Awesome game.
Go ahead. Because Brother Rice, I feel bad for Brother Rice. I don't know if you do, but to lose this way 2 weeks in a row is really tough.
Yeah, that's really a tough one to take. Joe, it looked like a bare knuckles cage match between these two teams for most of the night. It was Stephen Armbruster's, who we mentioned, his late 80-yard touchdown pass to Walter Jones that broke a 7-7 tie in a game that looked destined to overtime prior to that play.
Right.
St. Rita's defense, Joe, was menacing all night. They flew around delivering big hit after big hit. And like you mentioned, for the second straight week, Brother Rice loses a heartbreaker. This is a very, very good team that looks up after 3 weeks and they're 1-2. And Brother Rice, goes to Loyola, who's also 1-2 next week, while St. Rita will be in Wheaton to take on the winner of that Loyola game, St. Francis.
Yeah, pretty. Those two excellent games, right, coming up next week. But one of the interesting things about this game, Dan, is the score. Right, I thought this was going to be a little more points scored in this game, but
did you?
I did. Even though both the defenses, as we've talked about, are really good, and because of that, who do you like, Dan, on the defense for St. Rita?
Oh, hold on. Where do I start? Oh, wait, what's that?
for it. Wait for it. There we go. Now we're ready.
That's how St. Rita played, Joe. They played like that. Right. They played like Zuko, and Zuko's dog of the week came from this game, Joe. I watched this game as we were in Friday Night Blitz, and like I said, it was big hit after big hit. You had guys on Brother Rice. King Liggins was awesome. A great D line, and Joe. Since we're talking about dog of the week, we may as well go through the whole pound. Right, the people, those guys that we've identified as guys who were up for consideration, and so we put them in the dog pound. With Zuko's choice for dog of the week. But first, I'm going to touch on a different game here. Avery Bellis, defensive back for DePaul Prep, he had 2 interceptions. Daniel Rouse for Joliet Catholic was all over the field. I think I saw he had 15 tackles in a great defensive game for JCA against Fenwick. Matt Mucha for Mount Carmel was also a guy that was there were a ton of points scored in that game, but he was all over the field. Great plays catch my attention, Joe. So it's a lot of times that's I'll make a note of who made those plays. Danny Jones at Providence made one of the cooler plays a defensive lineman can make. He plays a defensive end position or 5 technique. He did the whole tip pass on a quick screen and intercepted. So he both tipped it, picked it off, and that's very close proximity to the quarterback. So he took it down to like the 1-inch line. 1-inch line, where Providence went in then after that. But that was an awesome play. That really caught my attention and earned Danny's spot in the dog pound.
So one thing on that, Dan, I'm sure the defensive line coach is going to take credit for that, right? He's going to say, we practice it every day.
Right.
We practice tipping the ball, then catching it and running it down to the 1-inch line.
Yes, that's a drill we do. So that's all coaching, people. Right. All coaching. Another D lineman, Joe, Josh Laura for Marist, number 55. He's their D line is something else. He's another unblockable defensive lineman for the Redhawks. He plays the 0 technique or nose guard, so he's right over the center, and he's got great technique, uses his hands, plays with great pad level. But the best thing about a D lineman to me is always their motor, and how aggressive they are and how hard they play after play, and he's got an awesome motor. So, Joe, all those guys are members of the Dog Pound this week.
All right. Yeah, they all deserve it for sure.
Yeah. But my one player that I think I said something maybe during the Blitz that really jumped out off the screen this week was Justin Buckner for St. Rita. He had one series, Joe, where he made the ground shake with the hits he was putting on Brother Rice's players. It was something to behold. And so I went a little deeper dive, and Justin plays like that all the time. He is a guy that you want to run away from. If you catch a pass in the middle, you want to make sure you know where that guy is. So for those reasons, Joe, in a great defensive game with a ton of hard hitting, Justin Buckner is chosen this week as Zuko's Dog of the Week.
Awesome. Yeah, congratulations to Justin. Well-deserved, Dan. I know you, like you just said, you took a deep dive into looking at some of his play throughout the game, and really a standout on defense this week. So, congratulations, Justin. You're the Dog of the Week.
Yeah, Zuko's Dog of the Week. Yeah, congrats, Justin. Number 11. So that was a great game, Joe. And if we want to move on to our next game, I wanted to talk about St. Ignatius at IC.
Oh, you did? All right.
Yeah.
Let's go there then.
So, I had picked IC in this game because I thought, the week off for IC
Wait. Who did I pick?
You picked St. Ignatius.
Yes. Right, go ahead.
All right, just to be reminded.
Yeah.
I thought the week off, I talked about it, in our preview that the week off was going to help IC in getting their assignments ready for St. Ignatius triple option. It's one thing to be ready for it and another thing to execute. And I have to give credit to St. Ignatius perimeter players who just block their butts off. Whether it's the wide receivers or lead backs getting out on the perimeter, they make it very, very difficult on the edge defenders and probably don't get enough credit for St. Ignatius' running game and their success. St. Ignatius defense also showed up forcing 3 turnovers in the 3-score victory. So great win for Ignatius.
Yeah, really good win for Ignatius. And you and I went back and forth on this a little bit in our previous episode about how we thought IC might be affected by having that week off. I'm not sure if that had any difference in this game at all, Dan, but one thing I did see was that IC had actually more total offense than Ignatius, but I think they had, 3 turnovers?
3 turnovers, difference maker, yeah.
For sure, difference maker against a really good team like Ignatius. So, we'll see. They got to get that cleaned up, right?
Well, they do. Yeah. They do. Next week they no rest at all, and no down week. They'll be in LaGrange Park. I see that as we'll be in LaGrange Park for a divisional matchup against Nazareth, while St. Ignatius goes to Mount Carmel and takes on the Caravan. So 2 big games for both those teams next week.
All right. Yeah. Well, let's move on then to the Mount Carmel Nazareth game. Everybody was talking all week about how this was probably the game everybody wanted to watch within the state of Illinois last week. So Mount Carmel comes out on top in this game, 56-33 against Nazareth. Really outstanding game by Jack Elliott, quarterback for Mount Carmel. Wide receiver as well, Cooper Lehman, had an outstanding game. I think he had over 250 yards receiving. Elliott threw for 6 touchdown passes, which I think is a record for Mount Carmel. And as well as Cooper Lehman, he set the record for Mount Carmel for number of receiving yards. So just an outstanding offensive performance for Mount Carmel. Nazareth hung right with them throughout the game, but in the end, just did not have quite enough to put them over the top. But Logan Malachek had a great game. Tyler Penley had a great game. The receiver, we talked about it during Friday Night Blitz. Nazareth, their skill position players are outstanding, but.
Their tight end caught a couple touchdowns too, didn't he?
Tight end caught a couple touchdowns as well. So they spread the ball around a lot. And like I said, their skill positions are really, really, really good players. And they're going to spell trouble for everybody going forward on their schedule. But you've mentioned this, and we've talked about this. Mount Carmel might be the class of the CCL at this point, Dan.
So far, they seem to be. Yeah, they're just so strong offensively, or they're really well balanced, but they're so strong offensively. They've got a big play around every play can be a big play. It could be 3rd and 13, and there a lot of coaches will say we don't have a play for that in the playbook. Both these teams, Mount Carmel and Naz does, but I think Mount Carmel's got just incredible firepower all over the place.
Right. Yeah. And let's see the next game here, Dan. Let's go to Loyola and St. Francis, the game that we were watching. If we said the Mount Carmel Naz game was the most interesting game in the state of Illinois, this one was probably just as interesting. It was the first home game under the lights for Loyola. And St. Francis went out there and they beat them 35-21, Dan.
Yeah.
I didn't think that was good. Honestly, if the game would have been at St. Francis, I might have had a different approach to evaluating the game, especially doing our previews and predictions episode. But I thought for sure, maybe I shouldn't say for sure, because I wrote it down in pencil, right?
Always smart.
St. Francis going out to Loyola, first home game under the lights at Loyola, that the result was going to be different. But Fitzgerald was out of the game, didn't come in. Don Maloney, who filled in for him, had a decent game through a couple of touchdown passes. But in the end, St. Francis was just too much for Loyola at this point. So, bit of a surprise. St. Francis gets the win, and Loyola. Who thought you might say this, Dan? Though, but Loyola goes to 1-2 on the season.
Boy, yeah, that's a surprise. I think regardless. Now, we talked about some of these schedules, Joe, when we looked at them early on, and while we say it's a surprise, is it really? I mean, it's like these teams are all so good. They maybe people thought it could have been 1-2, but with losses to Glenbard West and East St. Louis, but maybe they'd come back with the win. And the thing about the first night game, a lot of times those games, those big hype games for outside reasons, always end up, with the visitor, whether it's in the NFL and it's or Major League Baseball and they're getting their World Series rings or something. When there's a big outside event, I don't know if it's distractions or what it could be. It could just be, that's taking away from St. Francis's effort. We had a correspondent out there who said it was never felt like it was in jeopardy.
Never even close, right?
Yeah. Never felt like in jeopardy, at least that St. Francis wasn't in control the whole game.
Yeah. And we actually had some people weigh in too after this game, Dan, who were aware of our predictions. And they said good thing they were in pencil, because now you can flip that around and erase them. Use that eraser.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so, I mean, I get it. St. Francis is a very talented team. They went in and were able to beat Loyola. So I don't know exactly what that says about both teams going forward, other than what you said, that the Chicago Catholic League is a really tough conference, and every game is going to be a tough game. But it's going to be interesting to see how Loyola responds, and if St. Francis can kind of build off of this game.
Well, and Loyola hosts Brother Rice next week, so that is, both those teams are going to have to really get out. They're both 1-2. So that's going to be a challenge, and now it becomes in week 4, really, really critical game. You're starting to get to that point where it's like, hey, we got to think about making the playoffs here. So
exactly.
So that's definitely going to be something that's on the mind of Loyola, the Ramblers.
Yep, for sure. All right, so let's move on here. Let's go to the Marist Montini game, Dan. So Marist moves to 3-0. They get a 21-0 win over Montini.
I think it was 21-6.
21-6. How many times do I have to say that, and do you have to correct
it? A couple times pre-show, during show, probably post-show.
God, yeah. All right. Tell me about this game, Dan.
Yeah, Joe. Well, the Marist defense is one of the real deals, maybe the best defense, at least I've seen in the CCL. They hold a really strong Montini offense to 6 points and under 250 total yards. Marist defense was led again, by their guys up front this week. But like I mentioned, Josh Laura was just a menace all night for the Broncos. It's sacks, tip passes leading to interceptions. Offensively, Jacob Ritter led the way for the offense. He had 2 touchdown passes, and I think another on the ground. But
I think so. Yeah.
Yep. It's likely, it's going to be another defensive battle next week as Marist goes to Joliet to take on the Hilltoppers Friday night, while Montini will be at another 2-1 school, Fenwick. So,
right.
So tough games again for all 4 teams involved.
Dan, should we be concerned at all about the Montini offense at this point? I mean, I know Marist, their defense is outstanding. Montini, I think they've got a kind of a 2 quarterback system going right now. They've got Gaetano Carbonara, as well as I can't think of the other quarterback's name.
Israel
Abram, right? So I don't know if they're maybe trying to figure that out or if that's how they're going to continue to go going forward. But to go forward in their schedule, you're definitely going to have to put some more points on the board.
Yeah, I mean, and they scored 49, week 1 and 21. 21 against Hillcrest. I don't know. I know Bennett put more on Hillcrest than that. I don't want to get into the comparative, but their schedule going forward. I mean, it's not easy. It's something to keep an eye on if they have a bit of a quarterback controversy, or if the plan all along is to play both those players.
Right. Yeah. I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's any controversy. I think it's more of a matter of they want to get them both in the game. They've got different skill sets, I think, and they bring something different to the game. So it seems like from a coaching perspective, that's kind of how they're using the two quarterbacks at this point. Let's see. So let's move on to Joliet Catholic and Fenwick, Dan. So 14-13. Joliet Catholic over Fenwick this week. Joliet Catholic gets back into the win column. Joliet Catholic, Dan, in this game had 373 yards of total offense. Most of that was on the rushing side of the ball, but they just had some difficulty scoring. And that's understandable considering Fenwick's defense with Nate Marshall, Jack Paris. But they had just enough offense in order to score 14 points. Fenwick was down 7 points for the majority of this game. They were able to score a touchdown towards the end of the game, but Fenwick could only muster 16 rushing yards in this entire game. So the Joliet Catholic defense really stepped up here. And, you have to kind of give them the credit for the win against Fenwick.
Yeah, I think you say 16 yards rushing. That's a low total. That's something to keep an eye on if that becomes a problem. I know Fenwick's done a lot with their passing game early on in the season, but it'll be interesting to watch if they have a little more success running the ball as these weeks go by.
Yep, I'm sure they'll be working on it this week, Dan. But let's go to Providence and Carmel. 27-24, Providence or Carmel over Providence, and again another team with two tough losses right at the end of the games. For Providence. Yeah, it kind of feels like playoff games. The way the air gets let out of the balloon for Providence, and we talked about Brother Rice and. Just so late in the game, playing a great game. Carmel gets an unbelievable late TD dime of a pass, Joe. I mean, it was an absolute dime from Trey Taylor to catches made by number 9 on Carmel. But Providence, they've lost their second game in 3 weeks in the last offensive play by the opponent. Both teams just played their hearts out in a back and forth game. Providence did get solid performances from quarterback Leo Slepsky and running back Broden Mackert. And, you'd expect Xavier Coleman. He was a difference maker in this game as well. I talked about Danny Jones having a tip interception in the game, being disruptive on defense. But, Joe, it doesn't get any easier. Carmel hosts St. Lawrence, which will be a tough game. Tough to tell who's who. I know one team will wear white, but they both wear the Browns. The Browns. While Providence, tough game to tell who's who. Providence will take on Notre Dame in Mokina next Friday. So Providence has another tough defense to contend with. Yeah, for sure. And one thing, I did watch a couple of the I watched a little bit of video on this game, Dan. And did you mention Xavier Coleman?
Yes.
Yes, running back / wide receiver for
Providence.
Definitely want to get the ball in that guy's hands going forward.
Yeah, he's
got to get about 20 touches a game.
Sure. I'm sure they're trying. Yeah, so he'll line up as wide receiver, but they do the whole jet sweep motion, and he's he's the main carrier on that, and he does a really nice job. Great speed, good size to go along with it. He's a handful to bring down once he's in the open field.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so that's that game. Let's go to the Notre Dame St. Lawrence game. St. Lawrence wins this with 24-0 over Notre Dame. St. Lawrence now moves to 3-0. Great start. You know, Notre Dame, I think, continues to play really good defense. Even though they gave up 24 points here, that's not all that bad against a really good St. Lawrence team and St. Lawrence offense. But Notre Dame continues to struggle on the offensive side of the ball. St. Lawrence, obviously, they've got Chase Kwiatkowski. He threw a touchdown pass to Kyle Richardson. Again, Harley Riz scores a touchdown running the ball. Corey Less as well. So St. Lawrence running game is really clicking here. As you mentioned, Notre Dame goes to Providence for their next game. Really, if they want to get in the win column here again, I think they've really got to kind of work on that or figure out what they need to do on offense to kind of score some points, Dan.
Yeah, because even in their victory against Sterling, you know, they dominated on special teams and they dominated defensively. I still think that their offense is a work in progress. So we'll see how that offense grows as the season goes on. If they find something that they can be successful with consistently.
Right. Okay. All right. Good. So let's go to the Marmion St. Viator game. Friday night game that was at Marmion. The two different teams from different divisions in the CCL. Both of them come into this game undefeated. St. Viator seemed to be a little too much for Marmion to handle here, Dan. Winning this game 34-7.
Yeah, and it was tight. It was 13-7 Viator at halftime, and Marmion had some opportunities. I think both teams had opportunities to maybe score. Viator had some penalties that took him out of scoring position early in the first quarter. But St. Viator's offense, Joe, is going to be a problem for the ESCC. And with Cooper Komet, Davion Ellis, Keaton Franzen, they just dominated the second half and looked very good doing it. They looked very fast. Ellis and Franzen each had 2 touchdowns, with Komet accounting for the other. Marmion held tight, and we talked about had opportunities early in the game, maybe to take the lead, but they could never really sustain anything. St. Viator plays Bennett next week, and that's going to be 2 high-powered 3-0 offenses taking on one another next week in Lisle. And Marmion, you know, they'll travel. They'll be on the road at De La Salle in a Red Division matchup next week.
Yeah, and I feel bad because earlier we were talking about, I was saying one of the things that I noticed or that was evident to me is how good the quarterbacks are in the CCL. I don't think I mentioned Cooper Komet.
I did.
Oh, you did? Good.
I did.
Good.
Yeah.
Because outstanding athlete. You know, I saw something today in looking through some stuff, Dan, where they're saying he's maybe top 3 quarterback in the state of Illinois. I know you watched some of this game. How do you feel about that?
He's more of a dual threat than I think I had anticipated. I'd seen him play as a young player, I think a freshman, and he could run, you know, and he's not as tall as I thought. So I kind of went in my mind's eye, I thought of him as maybe more of a drop back guy. He is dangerous running the football. I mean, he gets out on the perimeter, or they've got plays called for him, quarterback draw. He is really dangerous with the football in his hand. So I think that is something when you see the style of play, you know, even in the NFL, kind of, you know, bleeding down into college and high school, that when you've got such a great athlete with a great arm and can really run, probably why he's up there in that top echelon of Illinois quarterbacks.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, that's going to be a great game next week. where St. Viator and Bennett square off. And speaking of Bennett, the next game, and let's go to De La Salle and Bennett, Dan. Bennett dominates this game against De La Salle. They end up winning 42-0. I think this was 35-0 at halftime. Big game again for Ryan Kabaki, as well as Marty Rogowski, the running back. I think Marty Rogowski had 3 touchdowns in this game, scored several different ways, either running the ball, a punt return, maybe on defense as well. And again, Luke Doyle with another touchdown catch from the wide receiver position. Bennett is really clicking on offense for sure. I think they're averaging, in their first 3 games, I think they're averaging just under 35 points a game, Dan. Next week, they take on St. Viator, who's also in that same category as far as the number of points that they're averaging. So that's going to be a really big game with 2 kind of high-powered offenses here at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and it will, as soon as we say it, the points are going to be rolling like crazy. The scoreboard's going to be going crazy. It'll be 10-7, right? But
it'll be a defensive stand.
Yeah, right. And Marty Rogowski, I mean, he's got touchdowns. You touched on it, Joe. He's got like offense, defense, special teams touchdowns, in multiple games. Yeah, he's got to be one of the top athletes, so far from a statistical point of view in the entire Catholic League. He's just doing it all for Bennett, and he looks really fast on film, on video. He looks really fast and shifty and tough as nails. He doesn't look real big, but he can really run. So this should be a lot of fun Friday in Lisle.
Yeah, and I promise I won't do this with every team that we talk about, Dan, though, but I was talking about quarterbacks and the quarterback play in the CCL, and I don't know, did you mention Ryan Kabaki? I don't want to forget him because he's had a really, really good start to the season here.
Yeah, he's a heady quarterback that is another guy, just like Komet. When he's out on the edge, he's dangerous, running or passing, and another tough as nails kid that really makes that offense click for Bennett.
Yeah. All right. Okay, so let's move on to the next game, and the next game we wanted to cover, Dan, was Leo and St. Patrick. So Leo falls 17-6 to St. Pat's. Leo, tough start to the season here, going 0-3, and as we say with every team going forward in the CCL, it doesn't get any easier from here. But Leo has got to find something here going forward where maybe they can pull out a win against some team here.
Yeah, you see little glimpses with Leo. They took the lead in this game, Joe. They were up 6-0. They just couldn't capitalize on any other opportunities. It sounded like they had some maybe late in the game, but St. Pat's took the lead right after that on a Joe Costanzo pass to Gavin Fitzgerald. Never really looked back. There was no scoring, though, after halftime. And I know Leo threatened late in the game, which would have made it a really tight game. But St. Pat's wins its second straight. Well, you mentioned Leo drops to 0-3. I don't want to pin a moral victory on Leo. They do seem to be making some incremental progress. So we'll see what happens as they travel to Marian Catholic. So in division play for Leo and Marian Catholic this week, and while St. Pat's will be at DePaul Prep.
Okay, yeah, and hopefully Leo. I hate to root against any of the CCL teams, but we talked to Coach Stevenson in the preseason. Really like what he's doing with the Leo program. Obviously, he's trying to get it back on track here. And like you, I looked at a couple of positives here for Leo, and hopefully they can build on those and have a good showing against Marian Catholic next week.
Yeah, it sounds like they're getting closer. They're getting closer. Still making too many mistakes to be successful, consistently, but they seem to be getting closer.
Okay. All right, Dan. And our last game that we're recapping here was the Marian Catholic DePaul prep game. DePaul gets a win over Marian Catholic 20-7. DePaul, a team that you and I have talked about a variety of times in our previous episodes, and think they're a team on the rise. They moved to 3-0 on the season. Marian Catholics is now 1-2. But a couple of the players that Coach Passarella has talked about when we interviewed him, their quarterback, Juju Rodriguez, he threw for 2 touchdowns in this game, Dan. He rushed for another touchdown. So he's delivering as expected for Coach Passarella. He's finding multiple receivers, and Justin Sterner with a touchdown pass, as well as Matt Osterman with a touchdown pass. The defense continues to impress, and only giving up 7 points this week to Marian Catholic. One thing, Marian Catholic seemed to move the ball much better in this game. I know we've talked about their offense and that needing to get on track for Marian Catholic, but they were their own worst enemy in this game, Dan, and they threw 3 interceptions. Right in the middle of marching the ball down the field, especially using the run, would move to the pass in certain situations, and DePaul picked them off several times. And one of the guys in our dog pound, Avery Bellis, had 2 of those picks.
Yeah, and it's Joe. We talked a little bit about the quarterbacks in the CCL to start this episode, and you'll notice, right, they're passing and running. We talked about being dangerous both with their arms and their legs, and it seems to be something that more and more, it's something that you really, a running quarterback, there's a running quarterback that runs within the scheme of the offense. So the zone read, which is so popular now. And there's plenty of quarterbacks that do that in this, whether it's zone read or a counter read, all kind of option plays that are popular in high school football. But then the scrambling aspect of some of these quarterbacks, when a play breaks down, it's just really hard to prepare for that during the week. Right. And to have someone that's dangerous like that, it really makes it tough, which I think is a reason, we're seeing what we're seeing with a lot of these quarterbacks that can really run. And so Juju Rodriguez is no different and fits that in that category perfectly. So interesting to see how many running touchdowns we're going to see from quarterbacks over the course of the season.
Yeah, well, the trend is definitely moved from a quarterback standpoint in the quarterback position to those dual threat quarterbacks for sure. And the CCL seems to have some really good ones this year, so it's going to be fun to watch these quarterbacks for the different teams, throughout the rest of the season. So, but Dan, that's all our games that we wanted to do our quick hits recap on. Again, a great week in the CCL this past week. Some of the games. Looking forward to week 3 or week 4. Can you believe it's week 4 already?
Yep. I know. After next week, we'll be the Wednesday following this week, we will be at the halfway point of the regular season.
So we'll have our episode coming out later this week, and our prognosticus episode where we're doing previews and predictions. And one of the things we're probably going to have to start looking at, Dan, is what it's going to mean for the playoffs for these teams.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to start
to that point, right?
Yeah, you're going to start seeing teams with 4 wins or 4 losses, or 3 losses that you didn't expect to be in that position, and that definitely adds some pressure to these teams, coaches, and players, and it's going to start to be a factor as we get through. You start to see some changes where I don't want to call it desperation, but people are saying, okay, it's time to do things like maybe play some guys who haven't necessarily played 2 ways, on both sides of the ball, because they are significantly more effective or dangerous on either side of the ball, but we've wanted to rest them to this point. You're going to start seeing some of those guys, who might be one way only right now go two ways. I think that's kind of the biggest change you see when things start to get tight.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure that's going to be, we'll track that, Dan, because I think that's a really interesting point.
Not it.
Look, what's that?
Not it.
Yeah. We'll try it. We'll try to track that. I don't want to give us too many things to track.
Right.
That's a problem for us.
Yeah. So we've committed to tracking quarterback scores on the ground this week, and now we're going to track two-way players. You know what? The games will track them for us, Joe. These guys, it jumps off the video when you watch it and you see guys helping on both sides of the ball. We've already got some that have made a difference. We talked about Marty Radkowski. I mean, he's already been a huge difference maker on either side of the ball. Davion Ellis for St. Viator, same thing. So we've got some guys doing it already. It'll just be interesting to see who else and at what point in the season and what their record looks like when they make that commitment.
Yeah. All right. That's good. And I was going to say we should go over our what our predictions were and how we did. But why don't we save that, Dan, for our predictions episode coming up?
Makes sense.
Prognosticus episode coming up. We'll start out with that, and we'll let you know how we did, and you can tell us whether we suck or not.
Oh yeah,
for
you
sure.
Guys suck. Yep.
Yeah, and make sure if you guys want to say that, we can take it. Make sure you weigh in. You can do that on social media. You can leave us comments there. You can also reach it out to us at varsityvoices312@gmail.com. But again, a great week 3 of football. I'm looking forward to week 4. I'm past the 24-hour rule, Dan. So I'm looking forward from here on out. And
excellent.
Yeah, everybody, make sure you tune in on wherever you listen from. And for this week's episode, probably coming out on Thursday or Friday with our previews and predictions, and the prognosticus weighs in as well. All right, so thanks for listening, everybody, and we will talk to you soon.